Just to get some housekeeping out of the way, we are required to provide our legal disclaimers to you to fulfill our client compliance requirements. So thanks for your understanding there. So good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are, everyone, and welcome to our Women's Forum program for March. We are so excited that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about financial strategies to fulfill your brilliant life. My name is Nancy Rizzuto. I'm one of the founding partners and a principal here at STRAT, and I'm a founder of the STRAT Women's Forum. I'm joined by my colleague, Barbara Best, who is also a founding partner and a principal at STRAT and also a founder of the Women's Forum. And today we are so delighted that two of our colleagues will be presenting along with us. Molly Powers is a private wealth associate and a certified financial planner. And Carrie Walters will be presenting as well. And Carrie is also a private wealth associate. And we're joined by a number of our other colleagues as well that we just want to introduce: Jillian Kenny, Christina Quiros, Christy Bonacorsi, Amy Sullivan, and our newest team member on the institutional side, Yvette Marquez. So we are welcoming all of you today, and we're really excited about today's program for two primary reasons. First, we are fiercely committed to helping all women achieve financial freedom, no matter what stage of life that they are in. And we all need to be deliberate in our actions to create a life plan and a financial plan so that we can live more brilliant lives.
Absolutely. You know, and this topic is also top of mind because, well, it's really where Nancy and I are in our lives in the next 5 to 10 years, really looking out towards our post-professional life, you know, not retirement, but incorporating more of the other things that also bring us joy. You know, for some women, this could be leaving a traditional career to consult or teach or to do paid or nonprofit board work, to travel, pursue hobbies or interests. You know, and honestly, taking a step is really exciting, but a little and sometimes a lot scary for us also. You know, we think it's important, though, to begin planning and gaining clarity about our identity, our values and priorities, and how we want to use our time. You know, but it's also critical for all of us, which are issues that some of you wrote in the chat before the program, is that we need to build out a solid financial roadmap so that you can move forward more boldly and confidently, regardless of where you are today.
So we'll take a moment and just tell you about the two organizations that we founded to help create a frame of reference and some context for some of the remarks that you're going to hear today. So STRAT is an independent fiduciary investment advisory firm, and we offer asset management and investment advisory services to individuals and institutions grounded in two fundamental principles: trust and transparency.
So here's the question that we want you to answer. You know, once you transition from your traditional career, what do you want to spend your time doing? Now, you know, what do you want to do more of or less of or start doing? If you have one word answers, you just enter them. If you have a 2-word answer like board work or 3 words like start a business, you need to put a dash between the words so it'll come as one string response. And you're welcome to enter as many responses as you'd like, since we're going to have a lot more time and time to do a lot of different things. And then we'll see what the word cloud starts to look like here. Okay. Paint, consult. Yep. Volunteer. Board work. Oh,
Board
interesting.
work.
Yeah, that's a big one. Travel. Yes. Sale. Oh, I know who's on.
Did I see? Political. I thought it said police.
Oh. Quality. Sleep. Finally, we'll get to sleep. I love it.
Foster pets. Woohoo.
Oh, just started a business. That's awesome. Fantastic. Family. Absolutely. Grandkids. Yoga. Dream.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, this will continue to evolve, and we'll include it in the recap of this program as well, so you can see how we ended up here. But thank you for participating in this.
Yeah, so many common themes. So it's interesting that I just lost my screen, my apologies, that the last 24 months have really been a wake-up call for many of us. You know, we've been reminded of the limited control that we have over certain aspects of our life and how vulnerable we are to outside forces. You know, we've become aware of our mortality, and the words carpe diem certainly ring true, which has inspired many of us to pause and think about, you know, am I happy or fulfilled doing what I'm currently doing? Is it aligned with my sense of purpose? What's important to me and to my legacy? And is this path I'm still on worthwhile? Or, you know, and for some of it, that is an absolutely. But for others, maybe not. You know, the time of uncertainty also is a reminder of the importance of creating greater financial resilience and of taking charge of our finances so that we can have the freedom to financially prioritize our career and our personal goals now and into the future. You know, this is especially true for those of us who have decided that we are 5 or 10 years out from transitioning from our current work lives or professional lives. You know, this period is going to go more quickly than we realize. And we need to see this as an opportunity to, you know, focus on that time versus something to be feared or avoided. You know, fear from the uncertainty that comes with any kind of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and some of those questions or some of those things really are, how will we maintain connection and community, stay engaged and relevant, remain sharp, physically fit, emotionally and spiritually healthy? And there's going to be some important decisions to make, like we saw in the chat earlier. Where will I live? How do I want to spend my time? Will I want to earn income? Will I need to earn income? And then what happens to our identity? Who will I be without my title, without my daily routines, my interactions with colleagues and clients? When our identity is very deeply rooted in our careers, we may experience something of an identity crisis when it's time to make a pivot. And we may delay that transition, because of the time and energy we've invested in our careers. It's who we are and what we do. And, it's what we've often prioritized, and sometimes at the expense of other activities in our lives. It's really important to evaluate what might replace this aspect of your identity in your post-career life. But to pause and ask yourself, how can I apply my gifts and my skills and transition my identity without losing it? What brings me joy and meaning outside of my work life? And what else in life is important to me that I want to more fully embrace as my identity? So I thought I would share my identity crisis story. I had a fairly sizable one in my early 50s when I transitioned from my role in our institutional practice. I had great relationships with clients and in our industry, participating in committees, chairing some of them, speaking at conferences. And I also had the opportunity to represent our firm when we received the Company of the Year because of our excellence in advising clients in their retirement plans. Of course, this wasn't my accomplishment. It was our collective accomplishment, but I was so tied into being outward facing and connecting in the industry and being someone who might create some influence. So who was I going to be without this outward facing presence? Would I lose that influence, my relevance? Would I become invisible? I was really struggling. And to be honest, a lot of it, or almost, I think, quite honestly, all of it was ego, right? And then the gift of another door opened. Nancy and I started our women's forum, initially hosting in-person programs, and now we have this virtual platform that reaches thousands of women globally. We've raised thousands of dollars in donations for nonprofits, for women and families in our communities. And We've opened doors for countless women, helping women start businesses, transition careers, gain clients, and build lifelong enriching relationships. And this virtual platform hosts incredible programs and content that can enrich and empower women every day. So this alignment of my values and my personal mission at this stage in my life has been such a gift. Was it frightening? Oh, absolutely. And I'm still finding my way for sure, but it's something, that open door has enriched me personally and professionally in ways that I never dreamed possible. And I know that that can be really the same for you.
Barbara, thanks so much for being so vulnerable and for your willingness to share part of your journey and your gifts with us. And just to continue on with, what Barbara was talking about, thinking about, have you started to explore what's next for you? Where does your identity come from besides your career? And also, how do you find a healthy balance between work and other activities that bring you joy?
I'd love, before we jump into the action slide that I'll share in a second, feel free to chat anything about your experience that you thought was something you'd share. And then in the meantime, if anyone wants to volunteer for their group, just to spend a minute sharing something they found valuable, we'd love to hear it from you.
What we're really looking for is finding space to do some things that we like to do, and balancing out who we are and our authentic selves with what we do in our work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was one of the themes.
I like that word, authentic selves, too, right? And that's something you just can't wait to cultivate once you, well, hopefully you can start to cultivate that. And that's what I think we want to suggest right here, to do it as you're, approaching any transition, but certainly that one post-professional life transition. So I think 3 steps that we identified to help you explore identity is first, to ask some trusted people in your life, a friend, a sibling, a colleague, to share the attributes that they think of when they think of you. And are there gaps in their perceptions or their experience of you and how you wish to be perceived? Next is really to create a list of your skills and things you're great at doing. And how could they apply these activities, and these skills? How could they apply to activities outside of your work? And what do you love about your current work, right? I know in our session, it was a lot about how fulfilling and meaningful and purposeful work is. Really pause to reflect if you're leaning into your career because you're lacking aspects of your life or you're making intentional choices, right? I don't know if you all are familiar with Dan Pink. He wrote a book, The Power of Regret. He's on a podcast also with Brene Brown about regret. And he's conducted a lot of research that revealed that people regret what they didn't do more than what they did do. So regret of inaction are far more significant and impactful to people, and not in a good way, than regrets for action that is taken. So don't regret what you didn't do because you were afraid to make that change or that leap into something new.
Yeah, so true, Barbara. And getting clear on your purpose and what you want this future to look like will also really require you to determine if you have the financial resources to support your goals, end this transition. So we'd like to get your input on another question using the same texting app that we used for the word cloud. But this time, we'd like you to respond with a number instead of a word to the following statements that represent your response. And all responses are anonymous. So the question we'd like to ask is, have you ever created a financial plan? So answer number 1 is no. I've never created a financial plan. Number 2 is no, I've never created a plan, but thought about it. Number 3 is yes, I've created one, but it's outdated or I don't actively use it. And number 4 is yes, I have a plan and actively use it to guide my decisions. So if you want to share your responses, that'd be great.
Yeah, I
So
love
maybe
at
we,
least that. That's
yeah,
wonderful. That
yeah,
72% of people have actually, done it, whether it's active or not. So
yeah, that's great. Maybe we need to dust those off a little bit and get those people who perhaps haven't done one stepping into this process. But it's interesting, as we were preparing for this program, we came upon a survey that was conducted by Charles Schwab that said 1/3 of Americans have a financial plan in writing. But those without one, 42% of them said they didn't think they had enough money to create one. 22% thought that it was too complicated a process, and 19% didn't think they had enough time. So, but if you think about it, we really risk fulfilling our dreams and our goals without a financial plan. And to ensure you have the financial resources to confidently make whatever pivot you want to make.
that's so true. And we like this analogy
Mhm.
of driving. Can you imagine getting in your car to go on a vacation, or actually these days to go anywhere, and not using a GPS to identify the best route to get there, right? So with
Yeah.
something so important as our freedom and ability to fulfill our life and our legacy goals, we owe it to ourselves to invest the time to create and actively follow a financial plan. Research shows that one of the biggest fears that we have is running out of money in our lifetime. And your financial plan is a reality-based view of what it costs to be you. So let's demystify the financial planning process. And we want to walk through the experience and the outcome, what it's like, and learn the impact that different life scenarios have on producing a plan that helps you create an optimal path forward. And for those of you with a plan in place, you can compare this process to yours and see if you're incorporating some of the aspects that we view as a best practice.
So we'd like to introduce you to Pamela. So Pamela is 57. She has 2 grown children, both of whom are somewhat financially independent. She has a really big career and her work is very important to her. Once she transitions to her post-professional life, her goals are to spend $170,000 annually after tax and leave part of her estate and a legacy, some property to her children, and about $400,000 to her kids and causes that she cares about. So initially, she said that she assumed she'd work in this current role for another 5 years and then make a transition to consult, teach, pursue board work, or maybe just pursue hobbies, travel, and spend time with her family. But she just really wasn't sure. So, but she had never gone through the financial planning process, and she thought that, she decided that now would be a really good time to do so. So she wanted to be really more intentional about her finances and determine and understand what her options would be when it comes time for this transition.
So, as we sit down with Pamela or any client, we first home in on the most important part of the planning process, and that's talking through life and legacy goals. Ranging from small all the way to their wildest dreams, we talk about what they hope for their future and how we can help them achieve those goals. So we discuss current and future saving and expenses, their assets and debts, and we incorporate all of these factors into the plan. And as Barbara and Nancy said, the power of the financial plan is that it links your life goals to your finances. So based on our conversation, we help our clients like Pamela prioritize these goals when there's gaps between what they want to do and what they can afford. For example, if Pamela wants to spend more in retirement, she might need to decide if she's willing to work longer or to save more now. And so we talk through all these priorities and trade-offs, we set a course of action, and then we implement and monitor the plan. And of course, these goals can change. So we work together with Pamela to adjust the plan accordingly to make sure that she remains on a successful path. And what's great about this process is that it creates accountability. We, the advisors, are accountable, and we also hold our clients accountable. And finally, what's most powerful about this process is that it replaces uncertainty with confidence and peace of mind.
So as Carrie mentioned, we look to implement our process and we work to measure Pamela's success and address both her needs and priorities. And we are aiming for anything in what we call the green zone, as this will offer her a high probability of ensuring that she can fulfill her spending needs. When we look at yellow and red zones, this could mean that she runs out of money. So we want to have discussions and work around to manage these. And the scenarios we generate, they're stress tested and evaluated using up to 1,000 market environments. This is both good and bad markets. And this can help us evaluate and ensure that her funds will be able to sustain throughout her lifetime. So in the first scenario we created, we modeled Pamela working 5 years in her current role. She's spending an estimated $170,000 of after-tax funds and leaving at least $400,000 to her children or other causes. And given the high probability of success in this scenario, we feel that Pamela should feel confident in this path. But in talking to Pamela, she wanted to understand what other options she might have. And to help her see the impacts of her spending, we created a second scenario. And this scenario shows the impact of her spending an additional $30,000 a year. That's a total of $200,000 after tax. And with only a 73% probability of success, she would be likely to run out of money. And the risk that Pamela would be putting herself in would be far too great. But what really mattered most in helping Pamela was fulfilling her life plan. So in our conversations, she mentioned that she was very excited to step back from that traditional work she had been doing. And in scenario 3, to illustrate what it would take if she wanted to stop working today, we used a conservative estimate of no future income and modeled what she'd have to reduce her spending to be able to make the transition. And realizing that she'd have to reduce her annual spending to $130,000 of after-tax, she knew that this wasn't realistic and she wasn't willing to drastically change her lifestyle. So from there, we created a fourth scenario. And this offered her a compromise of leaving her position in 3 instead of 5 years and spending $160,000 after tax, or just $10,000 less than that initial spending target. So finding this middle ground helped to keep her in the green zone. And by reviewing these scenarios and going through the planning process, Pamela realized that in whatever career change she ultimately made, she'd want to continue to work in some capacity. And she'd also want to earn income. And she was confident that she could find a role that would offer her the flexibility in making these choices. So as Pamela's situation evolves, we'll have clarity on how she can proceed. And the plan will continue to transform. If she has other goals that become apparent, such as purchasing a second home or helping a child with a wedding, we can help give her a better sense of what is financially possible. At the end of this process, Pamela expressed that her only regret was not taking action sooner to understand her options in this level of detail.
So as we go through this process with Pamela, there's some financial and life issues that we really want to make sure to address up front. And we find that there are a number of areas that people don't always think through fully, and they can later miscalculate their impact. For example, there's the possibility that Pamela underestimates her spending needs in the years after her full-time working career. Healthcare costs tend to rise over time, and people often find themselves supporting family members. And you need to really think about these situations because if somebody needed to depend on you for help, it could significantly affect your plan. We always talk to our clients about the likelihood of there being a dip in the market right as they expect to be drawing on their savings. We stress test the plan to see if their portfolio can withstand a 50% dip in the market, for example. And maybe it can, but could you emotionally handle volatility like that? And that's really when the risk tolerance conversation comes into play here. And we always make sure that the level of volatility in our client's portfolio is tolerable over the long term. And sometimes people feel that keeping more money in cash is less risky, but in fact, having an overly conservative portfolio can be a risk itself. And so you need to make sure that you can balance the risk and your need for growth in your portfolio to support your future success. And there's also some unique issues that can arise with a second marriage. Typically we see that assets are kept separate, but the household expenses are often shared. If the first spouse were to pass away and leave their assets to their children, the surviving spouse will still be left with all of the expenses of the household. So it's really important to have these conversations because a solution to this problem could be included within the estate plan. So it really reinforces the importance of keeping your seat at the table and making sure that you have a voice in the planning process.
Carrie, those are all great points when we look at Pamela's situation or any client we help. And we understand that everyone's time frame will be different. And that's why it's important to be engaged in your finances and create a plan. So as you get closer to your post-professional life, you have fewer opportunities to impact the outcomes for success. And this chart here illustrates the importance of putting a financial plan in place, whether you're 20 years away or 1 year away. As we look at the impact of success, we find both compounding and savings to be the most highly impactful when you're 20 years away. With compounding, the more time that you have, the more likely your assets will continue to grow from market returns. And savings correlates with compounding. If you have the ability to save early on, the added value to your portfolio and ability for those dollars to compound really can change what your total assets increase by each and every year. And when you're 10 years out, investment allocation and living expenses will have a significant impact on your plan. We find women are generally more conservative investors. And by ensuring that your portfolio's investment allocation provides adequate risk, you can feel confident that you're positioned for the growth that you need to sustain your assets for the long term. When you invest in stocks, you will be rewarded for taking on that risk. As we highlighted in Pamela's scenarios, spending is a driving factor for success. And as you identify your own living expenses, it helps you uncover your priorities as well as your spending limits. If you need to scale back and budget at this time, that gives you the opportunity to become more aware of your situation and serious about savings. And then even when you're 5 years out, we do still feel living expenses should be top of mind. Many people downsize at this time, and that can naturally reduce what their overall spending will look like. And looking at Pamela's situation, we also want to determine tax-efficient steps she can take. Since she has assets in both retirement and taxable accounts, taxes on those distributions will be manageable. But we find people who have a majority of their assets in pre-tax retirement accounts. This would be your 401ks or your IRAs. And those individuals need to consider how their distributions taken could impact their tax bill and then cut further into their assets. So while there are many things that you need to account for when creating a customized financial plan, we feel by discussing some of these financial levers, we hope that you can see the value in beginning to take action today.
Thanks, Molly. Those were so many important points to think about. And understanding how those levers change and can diminish over time really underscores the immediacy and the importance of having a financial plan in place. And we believe that there is no time like the present. You know, research shows that 1 in 3 women who make it to age 65 will live to age 90, which means we have a lot of years to plan for. When we were conducting research for this program, we found a story or a study that said that people of Okinawa, Japan, live 7 years longer than most Americans do, mostly disability free. And one of their secrets is that they don't use the word retirement. Instead, they talk about ikigai, which basically translates into the reason that you wake up in the morning. And, you know, from a personal note, when I heard that term, it struck me, I was struck by how much it resonated with me, because basically I've spent the last 2 years figuring out my own ikigai. You know, my word for the year back in 2020 was pause. And I didn't realize it was going to be a 2-year pause. But truth be told, I'm one of these women who have found the silver lining over these last 24 months. And as I thought back about it, in 2020, I spent 347 days at my home in Florida and 18 days at my home in Chicago. Now, to say I was grateful to have lived in sunshine during this period is an understatement. And I missed seeing my family, my friends, my business partners, and doing business in person. And I also missed being in person with our Women's Forum community. But through this transition, women have remained connected with us. And now that we're virtual, we have the privilege of impacting so many more women. But to share a little bit more about my story, you know, this pause really afforded me the time to examine my life, my relationships, my health, my passions, my own values, and my own purpose. And I got to tell you, I realized that I love the sun and the surf, and I love the serenity of Florida. So after living in Chicago for 12 years and loving it, I made a big, bold step last year and I sold my home in Chicago. Now, my 4 brothers immediately thought that I was retiring. But since we launched our office here in 2017 in the Women's Forum, I've been building our presence, creating community, making connections for STRAT, and of course, myself. Now, the decision was both very exciting, but a lot of anxiety. Separation anxiety is very real. But after some reflection, I felt that for me at that time, and at this time, less is more. I wanted quality over quantity. And it really led me to choose a more simplified life. Last year, I donated or gave away 75% of my belongings or stuff. And I moved away from, you know, deep relationships in Chicago from our headquarters, and I really just began again. But I didn't move to Australia. I'm just 2.5 hours by a plane ride away. And, you know, since the day we began our business almost 19 years ago, I have always believed that the work that we do matters, that financial peace of mind and financial confidence is priceless, and that supporting and connecting and empowering women through our Women's Forum is a blessing to me in so many ways. And doing it together with Barbara is truly fulfilling and crazy fun. The word grateful really falls very short. So just talking about time and purpose, this is not a career for me, but a calling. This is my purpose and what I was created to do. And I will always be a work in progress, but my values, my actions, and my life are now in harmony. And when I wake up on a Saturday morning or any morning that I did this past Saturday, and I read an email like this, I truly know that I am using my time to make meaning and to make a difference in the lives of others and living my purpose.
You know, Nancy, thank you. You know, this letter speaks volumes really about who you are, your generosity for supporting women and me in that list, and how you really live a life aligned with your values. So thanks. In the process of really digging down deep and identifying your primary values is really helpful at any time of your life, especially when you're contemplating a transition, any transition, so that you'll be more intentional in the choice that you make to better align your actions and values and connect with your purpose. So this worksheet is an excellent tool to help you do just that. Some of you may be familiar with a values worksheet. I know Nancy and I have used this one, this version, and found it helpful. I've used other ones. And just really honing in and digging into fine-tuning like what our values are, those primary values. And it's tough because if you have to limit it to 2 or 3 or 4, it's tough to dig through all those words. But this worksheet, what's so really good about this worksheet, which we'll share by the way, is the accompanying pages help you gain clarity around your core values and whether your behaviors and actions are aligned with them.
And when you reflect on your values, these are some questions contained in the worksheet that can help you gain insights into living in alignment with those values. As Barbara said, we'll share this in the chat, and we really encourage you to carve out time to go through this.
And I know time is precious for all of us. And as much as we, seek to educate and inspire women, what we really care about is the actions that you take. So regardless of whether you think you're 5, 10, 20 or more years out, really stepping into this next chapter of life, all of the things we discussed can help you move forward more intentionally to create a brilliant life. So this first segment of searching within and pausing in our busyness to connect with your values, your identity, and make sure the alignment of who you are and how you're living are how others experience you. And if you need to make adjustments, it would be more in aligned with how you want to show up. And next is really the taking charge of your finances, not to be an expert, but to be the boss of your money, to create and align life goals and a financial plan that will give you the freedom to make transitions more easily in your life with greater confidence and peace of mind. And that's really regardless of the level of wealth that you have, whether it matched our example or was less than or more than that.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. So before we wrap up, we've kind of come full circle here. We do want to share with you we have some financial planning and some life planning resources to share. These will be in the recap, which you will receive tomorrow, and it will also be hosted on our website. So from a financial planning process, as we are always here to support you on this journey. And as we started the program, we invest in conversation. So if we can help you talk through your financial plan or help you create one, please reach out to Barbara or myself there. And on the right side of this, these are some really amazing podcasts, articles from Harvard Business Review in Chief, some TED Talks, some conversations with Arthur Brooks and Maria Shriver, that we also wanted to share to help with the life planning aspect of your journey.